Dr. Breitenstein, I do have a few questions for you. You did talk a little bit about your background. And so first because your work is in social and emotional learning and how it supports children and their families, I would ask first, what interventions have you done in your career so far that has been geared around helping children and their families?
Yeah, so well, just like a little backup, I was trained as a child and adolescent psych nurse, and so I worked with kids that were older and saw lots of parents and would work with them, and they'd be telling me like, oh yeah, these problems are not new. These have been happening for a long time. Yeah. And so I got really interested in more early intervention and through kind of parenting support. Partly because parents are children's first teacher. They're kind of foundational to children's kind of social and emotional well-being and growth. Yes. And they can truly be change agents for their kids. And so so I got started involved with a program called the Chicago Parent Program. It's a behavioral parent training program. Okay. It teaches, I always think of these as like kind of foundational parenting strategies. So I talked about labeled praise before. Okay. And a lot of things that parents do already, but like to get reinforced on the things that they may be doing, and like to understand like why is this an important thing. Yes. And so partly is we know that safe, kind of nurturing and supportive environments are really important for those optimal developments, so we kind of help parents kind of build those skills. Yes. Am I answering your question?
You are. Yeah. And I can appreciate, because each of us here at the table, we're all have some sort of level of education. Being a parent, in my observation, is a full-time job that you don't go to school for.
That's right, and it changes over time too.
Okay. Yep. Okay. So being that it does change and you were able to do these parent training interventions, what are some of the aspects or the steps that you have to take to develop something that's successful for parents? Because as we know, every child is different and every parent could be different as well.
So one of the things we really focus on is helping parents kind of identify what their parenting values are, and kind of connect what they want from their children. One of the things we talk to parents about is like, in 10 years, how do you want your kids to be? And so you can imagine that's a universal list. Like, right, parents, they want their kids to be confident and feel loved and happy and all of those things. And so we talk a lot about, okay, so what you do now is really foundational and important to help them get there. Yes. And so, I think, and parents are stressed, and parenting is hard. And so all these things get in the way. And so I think it's also giving parents some grace too, that like you don't have to be perfect. We all make mistakes, and that's okay. Yes. And you can recover from them, and you can still be that really like a really great parent.
May I kindly ask, are you a parent?
I am.
Okay. How do you find balance as a parent with your everyday life, your profession, and being with your children?
Well, my kids are grown, so I don't have to balance that too much. Although I think when they get grown, they still need you a lot, right? They still are calling you and asking for advice, and it's a different level. I used to think when I had little ones at home that was a really busy time. Yes. I would say, I think where your child is, like high school age, is probably was one of the busiest times, because I think that's a time that parents really need to be home too and available, and like, you're not with your kids all the time, but there's some monitoring that needs to be done that's really important. So I think, through every stage is really hard. Okay. I always tried to have fun with my kids, and to kind of be present with them. And I think sometimes being present is kind of harder now. We have a lot of things that are screens and things that get in the way. And so really that's something we do early on with parents, is kind of talk about the influence of different things on kind of their communication and kind of their interactions with their children, and how important kind of having even brief times that you are focused on your child, that you are there for them without distractions. And that's really important thing. And I always tried to do that.
Okay. I do have one more question,
Okay.
and this is very interesting. So you did mention now we're all in a digital age, and we have social media and so many different other outlets to take us away from family time. So if you were to quantify it, how many hours or minutes should parents regulate with in order to keep the family centered and being able to keep the communication close knit? How do we manage that in the digital age that we're in? And now we have virtual reality as well.
Yeah. I don't know if there is a set time. I mean, the AAP, the American Academy of Pediatrics, has put out some guidance.
Okay.
But I think it's really, again, like individualized for families. And so
Okay.
it's like, I mean, even when I was raising my kids, we had VHS tapes. I'm aging myself a little bit.
That's
so
okay.
I could have put my kids in
That's
front of
okay.
VHS tapes for 12 hours, and
Yeah.
that would have been the same thing as putting them in front of a
iPad.
tablet. And so I think it's more about just thinking about, like, it's okay to have that screen time,
Yes.
but how do you balance it? And again, I think it's coming back to what is it that what are your values? What do you want to see in your children? And then how are you going to shape that?
Yes.
So I don't think there's a hard and fast rule for time.
Okay, so nothing definitive, but just being mindful. That's very helpful. What I like most about what you've said is this notion of having a foundation. And as I think about how we all undergo a human experience, we all have a foundation. We all have to start somewhere.